Welcome back to Supporting Organizational Change. In the first part, you learn to assess culture before acting and to walk the ADKAR journey: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement as a precise diagnostic rather than a generic checklist. Now you will put that foundation to work. You will look at how culture itself splits into two management styles, walk through design thinking as an empathy tool, see 5 real scenarios across predictive, agile, and hybrid projects, and finish with the specific traps the exam sets around resistance, mandates, and the shock of a badly timed rollout. By the end of this part, you should be able to look at any change scenario and name both the right diagnostic and the right first move, the two things the exam consistently rewards. McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y give you a fast way to diagnose an organization's default management style, and the exam expects you to match your tactics to it, rather than using one approach everywhere. In a Theory X top-down culture, people expect direction from above. Here, formal authority, a visible sponsor announcement, and clear written policy actually reduce anxiety, because ambiguity is what that culture fears most. In a Theory Y participative culture, the same top-down mandate breeds resentment. People expect to be consulted. Here, you lead with collaboration, empower champions to advocate from inside their own teams, and build consensus before you announce anything as final. Notice the trap hiding underneath this tool. Using formal authority in a Theory Y culture or waiting for consensus in a Theory X culture both fail for the same reason. The tactic was right in general and wrong for this specific organization. Design thinking is non-linear and iterative, and it exists to understand the human experience of change before you build a single training module. You start by empathizing, sitting with users to understand what actually worries them about the change, not what you assume worries them. Often the real fear has nothing to do with the technology itself. Next, you define the core problem in plain language, something like users are afraid of looking incompetent in front of colleagues. A clear problem statement points you toward a completely different solution than a vague one does. Then you ideate and prototype. For example, building a sandbox training environment where mistakes carry no real consequence. The goal is a small, testable solution aimed squarely at the fear you just named, not a generic course. Finally, you test whether the solution actually reduces anxiety, not just whether people can technically use the system. If the fear persists, you loop back. Design thinking is iterative, and the first prototype rarely gets it exactly right. These 5 situations show the same principles applied across predictive, agile, and hybrid delivery. A government agency rolling out compliance software faces skeptical department heads and a history of resisting change. The project manager maps engagement with the stakeholder matrix, documents updates formally, and secures written executive sponsorship. Resistance drops and adoption follows. Midway through an infrastructure upgrade, new regulations force changes to reporting. The project manager runs a formal impact analysis, updates the change log, communicates through scheduled town halls, and escalates critical risk to the governance board. The project realigns without scope creep. During a fintech sprint review, users push back on new interface changes rooted in habit. The team hosts feedback workshops, displays trends on information radiators, and reprioritizes the backlog with user input. Sentiment improves as people see feedback change the product. A startup's new AI feature sees low adoption from uncertainty about its value. The manager uses persona analysis, delivers short just-in-time training aligned to each release, and captures real-time feedback. Adoption climbs as help arrives exactly when needed. A hospital must digitize records by a legal deadline, while nurses vary widely in digital comfort. Training completion is tracked formally to guarantee compliance, while weekly simulation labs gather real usability feedback that reshapes the content each week. The deadline is met alongside genuine competence. Picture this: mid-project, the company announces a merger, a new strategy, or a change in leadership. This is exactly the moment the exam loves to test, because your instinct and the correct answer often point in different directions. The question is simple, but the stakes are high. Do you react to this news immediately, right now, before you understand what it actually means for your project? Reacting immediately looks responsible, but it usually means stopping work or rewriting the plan based on incomplete information, a tactical reaction that can waste effort or create redundant work you did not need to do. The stronger move is to pause, engage the sponsor, and assess how your project aligns with the new direction before changing anything. This is a strategic response, and it protects you from solving a problem that may not exist. On the exam, when a major organizational shift appears mid-scenario, the correct answer is almost always to check alignment first, not to immediately update logs or halt the schedule. These 4 traps appear again and again in situational questions, each disguised as a reasonable-sounding action. The first trap is technical tunnel vision, pouring all your energy into a flawless deliverable while assuming that because the tool is mandatory, people will simply use it. If the organization never adopts it, the project delivered zero value regardless of build quality. The second trap is mandating change, insisting people must use the new tool because it is policy, mandates by compliance, not commitment. The stronger move is demonstrating value through a small pilot that shows stakeholders how the change actually helps them. The third trap is saving every training and communication activity for one go-live event. That creates a massive shock all at once. The fix is phased delivery or simulation labs earlier in the project, so competence builds gradually instead of arriving all at once. The fourth trap is applying the wrong tactic to the wrong culture, using rigid top-down authority in a participative Theory Y environment, or waiting for consensus in a Theory X environment that actually expects clear direction from above. Each delivery approach carries its own signature trap and its own correct response. In an agile transformation, the trap is launching without management support for empowerment. If leadership keeps a command and control mindset while the team tries to self-organize, the change collapses. Mentor management on empowerment rather than forcing the team back into rigid artifacts. In predictive projects, the trap is saving all change activity for go-live, terrifying users the week the new system launches. The correct move is phased delivery or simulation labs introduced earlier, so people build competence gradually instead of facing everything at once. In hybrid work, the trap is changing the technology quickly while the surrounding business process stays frozen. A fast new app stuck behind a 4-week legal approval cycle. The correct move is acting as a bridge builder, helping legal adapt its own process to the new delivery cadence. 3 rules will carry you through most situational questions on this topic. First, resistance is data. When someone pushes back, that pushback often reveals a real risk or a genuine cultural mismatch. So your job is to listen and use the stakeholder matrix to track their movement from resistant toward supportive, not to discipline them into silence. Second, the ADKAR logic gets tested constantly, even when the exam never spells out the 5 letters. A scenario describing someone who understands the why but will not engage is a desire problem. Someone who agreed but has since drifted back is a reinforcement problem. Third, when a company merges or pivots strategically, the correct move is always a strategic response, engaging the sponsor and checking alignment. Never a tactical reaction like immediately halting work or updating logs without context. You have now walked through the full arc of supporting organizational change, diagnosing culture with Theory X and Theory Y, empathizing through design thinking, applying every tool across 5 real scenarios, and naming the traps the exam sets around tunnel vision, mandates, and shock rollouts. Keep one thread in mind above all. A project's technical output and its organizational adoption are 2 separate deliverables, and your job as project manager is to own both, from month 1, deliberately. That's it for this lesson. See you in the next lesson.